Well, welcome everyone. I'm Marty Greif, and I'm president of the SiteTuners, and I have the honor, and I do mean honor today, of having Dale Bertrand speak to us. Dale is the founder and CEO of Fire and Spark, and I want to share with you that Dale and I met, I guess a couple of years ago now. It's about that, and we went through a course together, and I was so taken with Dale. I mean, this man is so smart, has amazing integrity, and I am proud and honored to call him a friend. Okay, I mean, he is truly brilliant, and his talks are renowned. He's spoken to our audiences. He's spoken at HubSpot in front of, what was it, 11,000 people, Dale? I mean, some
It
crazy.
was a lot. It was a lot. I'll go with your number.
Anyway, a lot of people. So the reason we had Dale come today is Dale's going to talk about how SEO is changing. I think we all know that. He is at the forefront of SEO, and he is absolutely, and this is what is so unique, at the intersection of SEO and conversion together. And that makes Dale truly unique in and of himself. Now, today, we are recording this. We will be sending the recording afterwards. It usually takes us a day or two to get it out the door. No worries. We will have questions and answers, but we're going to hold those to the end, assuming that there's time. So if you've got questions, even if it's in the middle of the thing, please feel free to ask your questions. And at the end, assuming we have time, I will go through the questions with everyone. So with that all said, I'm going to disappear a little bit, but I'll still be here in the background, and I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, Dale. Dale, it's all yours, buddy.
Marty, thank you so much for the generous introduction. I'm feeling the love over here, so I really appreciate you having me today. I have a bunch to talk about around SEO, as we all know, is changing, and also conversion. So what are we doing to convert organic traffic? So organic traffic that doesn't convert is not valuable to us at the end of the day. So last week I was talking to the head of SEO at a large, at a brand that runs a large website, tons of traffic. They're getting millions of visitors a week to their site. He has a 10-person team of analysts on his SEO team. And in addition to that, he has 5 developers so that he can run SEO experiments and make changes to the website. When I was talking to him, we were shooting the duty about SEO strategies in 2024. And he had told me that his goal for the year is to increase their organic traffic by 20%. And that makes sense given his role, but I asked him about conversion. What if you're increased by 20%, but sales don't go up, you don't get more conversions? Does that matter? And he said that they have a different department, a different group that's in charge of conversion. He's really just in charge of traffic. Now, that actually really scares me, but that's the way a lot of people think around SEO and organic, which is the goal of SEO is to generate rankings and traffic. And as long as you're generating that traffic, conversion will just kind of take care of itself. Now, we all know, if you think about it for a minute or a second, that it's not actually true at the end of the day, that traffic will just convert and the conversion will take care of themselves. So what we're going to talk today about is how SEO is changing and how we are running at my agency, running SEO campaigns with conversion in mind from the beginning. And when your goal is organic conversion that generates customers, not just rankings and traffic, your SEO strategies are different. And that's what I'm going to highlight today. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, so you guys will get the slides afterwards. But what I'm describing is the difference between old school SEO for rankings. That's when your goal is traffic versus new school SEO for what I call SEO for revenue, where your goal is customer acquisition. The conversions actually matter at the end of the day. Now, we're going to talk quickly about what matters for organic conversion and how we figure it out. This is a messy whiteboard. And what this is at my agency, every 6 months, we do a survey of all the different tactics that we've tried on behalf of our clients for conversion, for rankings, for traffic. We map it all out to figure out what's working today. And we do this exercise every 6 months. We actually did it a month ago, and you guys can look at this more closely when you get the slides. And this is what we came up with. Some specific tactics around conversion and authority building. And the intent is all about targeting high intent traffic. So targeting high intent traffic and aligning your content and your calls to action with the intent behind those searches is really the key at the end of the day. And then some optimizations, on-site optimizations that are working for us today. So we call this evidence-based SEO, where we're not just using a checklist of SEO best practices where we've been doing the same thing, because a lot of you are working on SEO, have been doing the same thing for years. Instead, we're proactive about updating basically updating our strategies every 6 months based on this review. And everything you're going to learn today is based on what is working today when we did this review a month ago at our agency. Now, who am I? So Dale Bertrand, I've worked at the intersection of technology and marketing my entire career. I studied AI in grad school, and that's how I got into SEO when I started doing marketing. Everybody was asking me to apply that knowledge to organic campaigns. I built a supercomputer for the NSA, but that's a story best told over a beer. Nowadays, I run Fire and Spark. We're a 20-person SEO agency in Boston. We only do SEO strategy, and we've worked with a bunch of clients, some of which you may have heard of. Now, I'm going to talk about targeting the right intent. And I'm going to start with a quick story. So this one's about my daughter. She loves these dolls, American Girl dolls, and they're super cute in these videos. She found these videos on YouTube. That's how she started watching them. So when her birthday came in 2020, we all know that was the beginning of the pandemic, and her birthday is in April. So she wanted to go to the American Girl doll store in Boston, but it was closed because of the pandemic. So I was trying to figure out how am I going to buy her a doll. I was looking online. It turns out there's a used American Girl doll store in Boston. So we went looking for that. At the end of the day, what we ended up doing was driving down to New York. It was a wonderful daddy-daughter weekend. And we went to the American Girl doll store in New York. It turns out in the American Girl doll store in New York, you can have your daughter's hair styled in a chair next to the doll, and they're both having the hairstyle at the same time. It's ridiculously expensive. But what does this all have to do with SEO? What it has to do with SEO is during this whole saga to find my daughter an American Girl doll at an American Girl doll store, I was using Google. And I was going to Google, typing in American Girl. And at first I was looking for the American Girl store in Boston. Then I typed in American Girl and I was looking if I could buy one of these dolls online. Then I was looking for the used American Girl doll store in Boston. Then I was looking for the store in New York. Then I was looking for the form where I can sign up to have my daughter's hairstyle at the store in New York. And each and every time I was searching for American Girl, the intent behind that search was actually different. I was looking for something different. And I clicked on something different, but it was the same keyword. So it's important to realize that many keywords will have many different intents behind them. Those tend to be the shorter keywords. But if I was looking for or did a search like Nike men's running shoes size 8, pretty specific what that intent is. But understanding the intent behind the keywords that you're going after, and even better than that, understanding the intents themselves that you're targeting will help you to choose the right keywords, right content that's targeted properly, and craft conversion points and calls to action on your website that will convert much better. Now, we worked with a client. They sold 3D printing machines, and they wanted us to rank them for the keyword 3D printing. Now, what I did was I typed it into Google, and I saw that Google was showing maps. And what happened, or what we learned, was that when somebody goes to Google and they type in 3D printing, they're not looking to buy a 3D printer machine. They're looking for a service that will do the printing for them. So that's very different from the keyword we ended up actually going after, which is 3D printer, because it had the right intent. When somebody types in 3D printer, they're looking to buy a machine. which is the right intent for this particular client. And it took a little persuasion to get them to target the right keyword for that particular campaign. Now you might be wondering, like, how do you know what the intent is behind a keyword? It's definitely art and science. The science behind it is just typing that keyword into Google. We had a client that sells a medical weight loss drug, and they wanted to go after the keyword medical weight loss. It turns out that people, when they type in medical weight loss, they're looking for a local clinic, not an e-commerce store that sells medical weight loss drugs. We figured this out by reading the search results, by typing the keyword into Google and seeing what Google was showing on the page, because Google knows the intent behind keywords, because Google knows, Google just knows more about people searching than we do. And Google knows what they actually click on, and they can use that data to figure out what the real intent is behind a query. Now, here's an AI tool that I love. It's called WordCrafter. It's in beta, so you go to the website, email them, see if you can get access. What it does is you give it a keyword and it reads the results, just like I just showed you, but it does it automatically, and it figures out what the different intents are and builds an outline for an article. I don't write the article. I just use it to help me understand the intent behind the keyword that I gave it. But I like using this tool. Now, when we're planning for conversion, what matters is that you know your audience. So if we know what intents our audiences has when they're in market looking for the type of product or service that we sell, or looking to solve the problem that we solve, that's what's going to help us identify the right intents that are going to convert into real customers. And when we're building content, to build content and calls to action in that content that aligns with the intents that we're going after. And let me give you an example. We had another client that came to us, and they were a financial institution. They have accounts called donor advised funds. What that is, if you're not a millionaire, is you can give money to this account rather than to a nonprofit and get the tax break now, and then decide which nonprofit is going to get it later on. So a lot of people will open one of these accounts to get the tax break. What they wanted us to help them rank for the keyword donor advised fund. When we looked at the search results, we realized that most of the people who were typing in donor advised fund, they already had a donor advised fund. And what they were doing was they were filing their taxes, and they were trying to figure out how to file their taxes and get the tax break. So what we started doing worked really well for this client and other clients of when we're working on SEO projects, is we'll start not with keywords, but we'll start with intents. So what intents do we want to go after? In this case, with this client, the intent that we were really going after was somebody who was searching to open an account with a financial institution, specifically a donor advised fund account. What this allows us to do is to use the intent that we've identified up front to filter the keywords. So a better keyword in this case would be something like open a donor advised fund account, or donor advised fund account application. Like those have better, those are better aligned with the intent we're going after. But if you don't start with the intent, you might make the mistake of doing an SEO campaign in the old school SEO best practices sort of way, where you're starting with keywords and keyword research rather than starting with intent. And this is showing how that could really push you in the wrong direction. The other thing that starting with the intents that you want to target first helps you do is to craft your conversion points. So if someone's searching online to open a donor advised fund account with a financial institution, what conversion points would resonate with them? In this case, it's something around amplifying your charitable impact, or calculating your tax savings, or download our fee schedule, something like that. Now, when it comes time to actually create SEO content, the role of the content, the purpose of the content, when you're focused on organic conversion, not just rankings and traffic, is to bring people from the intent that you've identified to the conversion point that you've identified for that intent. And that'll help you with your content strategy, putting that together. So old school SEO, you're worried about what keywords have the most volume. New school SEO, when you're focused on conversion, you're really asking questions like, what do our customers, what questions do our customers ask to make a purchase decision, and what keywords are aligned with the target search intent that we're going after, things like that, rather than looking only at keywords with high search volume, or how are we going to track our rankings and things like that. And then another consequence of going really optimizing for conversion with SEO is that instead of the old school way of doing it, where you start with an SEO technical audit and keyword research, then you build some content, then you do some link building to build authority, and then once you have traffic, you figure out, how do I convert that traffic? The problem is you've already lost if you've generated the wrong traffic. So what we like to do is to reverse that process, think about conversion up front. And that process is what I just talked about, where we're identifying the search intents and then crafting the conversion points before we start thinking about content strategy. Then we also want to bake some authority building into our strategy, build that content, and then worry about the on-site technical details. And that's the strategy that's working for us now. So I'm going to get a little bit into AI and talk about some AI tools to help. There's predictive AI and generative AI. Here's an example of predictive AI. This is a patent that Amazon came out. It's in anticipatory shipping. I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to say the word anticipatory. But what they're going to do is send a package to your house and hope that you keep most or all of the items, and whatever you send back, they will happily accept as a return. This works when you have predictive AI that can predict what items my household needs based on what I've bought before, what I've returned before, and everything else that the AI knows about me as a consumer. So this is an example of predictive AI. Other examples, Netflix recommendations, predicting stock market movements, and then also the Google search results page. Google's predicting what you'll click on based on the keyword that you just typed in. But then there's generative AI. We're all probably familiar at this point with ChatGPT. It's generating text. This is an example of a service that will generate a selfie when you give it a bunch of images. I did this. If you look at my LinkedIn, it works well. Other examples of generative AI would be generating a content brief, or using generative AI to design computer hardware, which is what I did in grad school, or summarizing website analytics and extracting insights from analytics and explaining them to you, which would also be generative AI. Now, if you can grab this, I'll also give you guys my email address, but this is really to download my slides. You guys can use this QR code or email me directly, and I'll be happy to give you the slides, because I always get a bunch of questions. And there's some prompts that I'll also send over when I send you my slides. So now I'm going to talk quickly about large language models like ChatGPT. Many of you, I'm sure, are experimenting with ChatGPT. Many of you might already have a ChatGPT Plus Teams account like I have that I use every day. But ChatGPT is a large language model. And let's do a quick IQ test of the audience. So when I say 1 + 1 = I expect you guys to know the answer to this question. And I can't see your faces, but I'm going to assume that you're mouthing two at me right now. And the question I would ask you if we were in one of my live workshops is, when you gave me the answer 2, did you do math? And I'm guessing that you didn't. What you really did was you completed a pattern. And the pattern that you know in your head is 1 + 1 = 2. It's like a nursery rhyme. It's like a song in your head. You know what comes next when you hear 1 + 1 =. Well, what ChatGPT and other large language models are doing is, during their training, they're reading everything that's ever been written in the web and hundreds of thousands of books, and they're identifying patterns. What words come next? What concepts are similar or associated with each other? And they're using those patterns to generate the outputs that we ask them for. For example, what they're doing is they're choosing what is the next word, and they're assigning a probability to every possible word. So if it was generating a sentence like, my feet got wet while crossing then it'll assign a probability as to what comes next to all the other words that might come next, like river or street or puddle or swamp. And it turns out that you can use this capability of predicting what word comes next to generate a lot of different types of useful content when it's text content, and also doing some reasoning and decision making, which is really cool. So large language models are good at understanding natural language at the end of the day. So we can automate and facilitate processes or whatever we do as marketers that involve natural language. They also need to understand the prompts that we give them and the training data that we give them to make those connections and identify those patterns. Then what they're also good at is reasoning based on pattern recognition. So the example I gave you was 1 + 1 equals, so that's reasoning, but they can help me also figure out the best way to complete a task that I might have on my task list using that reasoning capability. But then they can also generate useful outputs. And this is important because if you ask like ChatGPT to generate a blog post, it'll do it. But you can also ask it to generate code, or if you're using image generation AI like DALL-E or Midjourney, you can ask it to generate images. But back to ChatGPT with large language model with generating text, they can generate a lot of different types of useful outputs, and that's important because you can use them in so many different contexts. Now, one of the contexts I use them in is to generate calls to action. And I just talked about my process going from search intent to call to action and then writing some SEO content. Now, we did some work for a craft brewery here in Boston. And one of the things we wanted to help them identify was, what is the customer journey that their customers go through? So they might have a craft beer enthusiast that is searching for beer and then shopping online, then they purchase, then they're enjoying the product, and then they're repurchasing. So it's a very simple customer journey. But the question is, like, what should the offers be in each of these stages? Something like, here's a beer tasting checklist, or get 10% off your first beer, or your first order when you're shopping online. Something like that. Now, I've been using ChatGPT to help me craft these offers. And here's a very simple example. Here I'm telling ChatGPT, you're a marketer and a copywriter for a beer festival. Write 8 calls to action for marketing promotional materials for the festival. And here are 2 examples. Now, this is simple. I'd want to give it a lot more information to get better calls to action, like so much information that it probably wouldn't fit on this slide, which is the reason why it's not there. But I would give it information about the beers, give it information about our audience, give it a persona document if we have it, and then give it more than 2 examples. The examples are really important when you're prompting ChatGPT, especially for something like this, because the examples are giving it just basically giving it guidance as to exactly what you are looking for. Now, there are a number of other ways to use AI as a thought partner related to organic conversion. So customer research, when you're building out those personas that are going to help you to build those search intents and target your conversion points and messaging better. And then you can use it for researching personas, and then use it for competitor research. So what are your competitors doing? And I'm going to show some examples around this. So one example that I love is, and this is something that I did at my agency, I do a lot of sales calls with brands that come to us that want help with their organic. And we've recorded all of those sales calls over the last 2 years. And what that means is we have this huge library of audio of recorded sales calls. And what we did was we used AI to extract all of the questions that we were asked, but we didn't stop there. We also asked AI to segment the questions by stage of the pipeline, because we have sales pipeline, we have every conversation we have is tagged with what stage of the pipeline it was in. And that allowed us to build out a set of questions for every stage of the pipeline and build better sales materials and calls to action and downloadables on our website and all of that good stuff based on the questions that I get on sales calls. Now, here's another one that I love. Like, we were writing about dog training and trying to understand what the issues were there. What I did here was a 2-step prompt in ChatGPT. The first thing I did was I asked ChatGPT, give me 2 well-known dog training experts. And it did. It gave me Caesar and Victoria. And I had to check to make sure that they really were, and ChatGPT wasn't making things up. That's important. Then what I did, I said, write an interview where the two of them are asked about static correction. And static correction is controversial. That's when you put a collar on your dog that might shock them if they get too close to an invisible fence or something like that. And it's controversial because you're shocking your dog. And focus on areas where they disagree. Now, what ChatGPT did was write this long fictional interview where Caesar, for example, was saying that the shocks could be effective and keep a dog out of harm's way, and dogs are pack animals, they expect you to be the alpha dog. And then Victoria was saying, well, positive reinforcement works better, and it's cruel to shock your animal, and there's a lot more. What's wonderful about this approach is if you're writing about something, trying to uncover more search intents or what people might be interested in or objectives they might have, this is a neat trick to get ChatGPT to help you with your research. But then there's data. And if you have a ChatGPT Plus account, you have access to advanced data analytics, which sometimes they call code interpreter. And what that allows you to do is to upload a spreadsheet to ChatGPT. One of the times we did that, we had a client that lost like 80% of their traffic. And when they lost their traffic, what they sold was they sold wool products. And most of their customers were using the wool that they sold for insulation for their house or for their van, if they happen to live out of their van. And when we exported this data, we exported a bunch of keyword data from Search Console that had position and click-through rate. So actually the conversion we were looking for was click-through rate. And we were trying to understand which keywords had dropped in click-throughs and which keywords had not dropped in keywords that we can in click-through, so that we could understand what the issue was, what types of keywords lost traffic. And what I used to do before I had AI was I would get a cup of coffee and eyeball it and just look at a bunch, like huge, massive spreadsheets of keyword data and just try to piece together, okay, what types of keywords are dropping here? What we found was that this client used to rank for a whole bunch of keywords related to van life. Van life is really a movement where people live out of their van. It's not for me, it might be for you, but they had used to rank for a ton of van life keywords. They lost all of that traffic. Instead, they were still ranking for wool insulation keywords, residential mostly wool insulation keywords. And what I loved about it was I was able to give ChatGPT the spreadsheet of data that we exported from Search Console, ask it to basically segment between the type of keywords that ranked, that still had traffic, and the type of keywords that lost traffic. And I asked it to describe those two sets to me so that I could understand what had lost and what hadn't. Now, here's an example of doing something similar, but this was on an autism website. When I said the sheet that I'm giving it here is once again exported from Search Console, and I'm saying analyze. And I'm sorry, I'm wrong about that. This sheet was actually exported from Google Ads. So this is the search terms report in Google Ads, and I'm saying analyze the search term column and the conversion column, then cluster the converting keywords into 10 groups. Give me a name for each group that describes the search intent of the keywords in that group. And then give me a couple example terms for each group. And it gave me a whole bunch of them, but there's 3 examples here where it said 3 of the types of keywords that are converting really well are autism therapy for adults keywords, autism evaluation for adults keywords, and autism diagnosis keywords for specific locations. So this is like huge for somebody like me who's been doing SEO and doing this exact thing manually for so long. Here's another example. This was a mortgage client that we worked with where we took some Google Ads data and we basically asked it to create new keywords that were not in the data set that we exported from Google Ads, but we only wanted it to give us keywords that it thought would convert based on the conversion data in the spreadsheet. So that's what we're doing here. And then here, this is the same type of thing. This is performance data from my website where I was basically grabbed this spreadsheet from Google Analytics, and I told it to ignore branded keywords and tell me what type of keywords were converting in terms of like click-through rate, we're landing on the website. So same type of thing as the other example. So now I'm going to talk about 4 AI-driven content recipes. Now, when you're thinking about AI content, what you really want from any SEO content is that it attracts the right traffic, so searchers with the right search intent that you're going after, and it's authoritative, like Google thinks it's worth ranking, and it converts those visitors when those visitors land on the page. Now, AI-driven SEO content has some additional criteria there that we're going for, which is we want to make sure that we can, the copy and visuals can be AI assisted, that AI can help us generate the conversion points, like I showed you earlier. So I have prompts that will recommend downloadables that we could create, messaging for conversion points, and things like that. And then also that it's intent targeted, as I've already said. So 4 types of content that are working well for us today. When we did that survey of SEO tactics that were working at the end of last year, one of them is niche buying guide. So what I'm showing you here is like blackout curtains buying guide that happens to be on the Lowe's website. But we've been able to have pretty good luck with AI assisted buying guides. And you can imagine what's going on here. Like for some of the buying guides, we'll have a spreadsheet of products, like product data, and then use the AI to identify the relevant products for this page, write some descriptions, and then build out other features on the page. We found that they convert pretty well because you can specify, or sorry, you can highlight specific products in these buying guides. Then also Q&A content is doing well. The key to Q&A content is to make sure that you're going after purchase intent questions. So the type of question that somebody would ask when they have that intent that you're going after, the intent that you've identified when you started putting together your SEO strategy. But we're doing well with Q&A content as long as they're purchase intent questions, and as long as you have the right calls to action that are like catnip for somebody who is asking that particular question. And then comparison content is also doing well. Once again, we found data sources. It depends on what you sell, what type of product, what type of service, what market you're in. But there's data that's available online that you can create comparison content from. If you're in the financial space, there's regulatory data, or if you're in the real estate space, there's regulatory data. Even I grabbed some data online from state boards of nursing that we use to generate some comparison content. This right here is a page from insurify.com. It's a startup that I advised, and they have like 1,000 of these pages that compare every insurance company to every other insurance company. And when you look at this example here, the title is Farmers versus Foremost Insurance, a summary. And people always ask me, well, Dale, I don't get it. Like, who's going to Google and typing in Farmers versus Foremost Signature? And that's not what's going on. What Google recognizes is that if you go to Google and you type in something like farmers pricing or farmers discount or something like that, one of these pages will come up because Google sees that it gets clicked through. And then these convert well because they're bottom of the funnel for people who are making a buying decision. And then there's niche calculators and surveys. We've done really well with maybe a mortgage calculator. I mean, the internet doesn't need any more mortgage calculators, but they convert so well that we love trying to figure out how to make them work. In one case, we made one mortgage calculator, but we put it on a bunch of different pages. We put it on a page that was titled Vacation House Mortgage Calculator, and another one that was Beach House Mortgage Calculator, and another one that was Second Home Mortgage Calculator. You can see where this is going. And then there are also some projects where it made sense for us to do a survey. Like it might be a survey. There was one where it was a survey about your dental health. And what's wonderful about the calculators and the surveys is we love to design them so that they just dump you right into a mortgage application or a product page where you can buy the dental product that is recommended to you. And that's why they work well for conversion, if you can get people to fill them out. Now we're going to talk about generative AI search. Generative AI search is going to be a huge disruptor in SEO. So there's a lot of fear out there that Google search results are going to change dramatically when they start using a large language model like ChatGPT to answer customers' questions rather than sending customers to your website, which is what we all want as marketers to get them to convert. That's called zero-click search. That means that they're searching for something, they get the answer from Google, and they don't click on anything. It's a nightmare. So this is what those pages look like. Some of you have tried Search Generative Experience. Right now, you have to go to Google Labs and sign up for it in order to try it. I suggest that you all do if you're doing SEO. But Search Generative Experience will just give you the answer. And for those of us who've been working in SEO for a long time, like, SEO is not dead. But SEO is changing even more rapidly than it has in the past. So Google's SGE, Search Generative Experience, which is their generative AI that gives your customers the answers on the search results page rather than directing them to your website. It answers those questions directly. There are less organic links, or they're just pushed farther down the page. From our testing of Google's current implementation of SGE, the ranking factors are just different. And what I mean by that is it's going to show some pages in addition to the answer, but they're not the same pages that Google is showing right now on the normal, regular, traditional search results page that we're all used to. So really what's at risk is top of the funnel traffic, the type of traffic where people are making informational searches, because Google can just give them the answer when this rolls out. And we expect this to roll out sometime in the first half of this year, but we don't know how it's going to roll out. Is it going to be optional? Is everybody going to be forced to use it? And is it going to be exactly the same implementation that we're testing now? Because the implementation we're testing now has been out for a while, but it's been constantly changing. So that's one thing we do know. It's not going to be exactly the implementation that we're testing now. So the new world of SEO, we're calling it generative engine optimization. But really what that means is it's the same thing as SEO, but how do we get Google's generative AI search, SGE, to send our customers to our website? Now, I've been experimenting with generative optimization. One of the first things that I did that was really a light bulb moment for me was I typed in, what does Fire and Spark do? Now, Fire and Spark is my agency, so I know what it does. So when Google or Perplexity.ai, which is another generative search engine that I've been using to really understand it, when it gave me an answer, I really saw what was going on. What was going on was it was giving me a very accurate average of everything that's ever been written about my agency online. And what's interesting about that is it's not accurate because some of the things that were written about us a long time ago just aren't true anymore. But because those things are prevalent online, because there were a lot of articles written about it, it shows up in the generative AI search. So that's one of the things. There's some other experiments that other folks have done and that we've done around adding citations to content and adding Q&A to content to make it show up more within these generative engines. But there's just a lot more there to learn. Now, this is one of the things that I showed, which is it says that we specialize in SEO, content marketing, lead generation, and it's just an average. It also said that we specialize in authority first SEO, which is something we made a lot of noise about. But nowadays we have a different strategy for SEO, which is the SEO for revenue, what I'm talking about today. So honestly, the generative search was just wrong, but I expect it to get better over time. What Google's doing is they're trying to figure out the right way to combine their traditional search results with a generative AI that could give you the answer or explain those results to you. And they're going to get better at it. So some of our early learnings, like brand mentions matter. You're more likely to show up if you're getting written about, you're getting mentioned online. Because remember, the large language models, which includes Google's search generative experience, they're averaging what's out there on the web. So you really want to build authority in your market, whatever that means in your market. And what I mean by your market is, how do businesses like yours build authority in your market? It might be advertising, it might be it might be social media, it might be speaking at the right conferences. It's just, what is it in your market? And then you want to have comprehensive coverage of your content niche on your website, because then it allows Google and Google's AI to see that you're an authority in the space based on the amount of information, the specificity of the information, and the fact that Google's seeing the concepts it expects to see from an authority in that particular space. And then investing in CRO and UX is important. What that's going to do is it's going to improve your engagement metrics. And Google's looking at things similar to bounce rate and time on site and all of that. And then looking at additional content formats. A lot of people doing SEO are doing a lot of blogging, and blogging is not the best way. I just showed you some other formats blogging is not the best way to generate SEO content that will attract the right traffic, build your authority with Google, and convert that traffic. And then this interesting thing about Reddit content, like Reddit content does really well with Google's AI and its generative AI. And one of the reasons why is because Google sees Reddit questions and answers and conversations on Reddit as firsthand trustworthy information. So rather than SEO articles that just informational, this information's been covered before, Google really likes Reddit content that's coming from firsthand experience from the authors that are writing it. So SEO is changing, and that brings us full circle back to the last slide here, which is that when you're doing SEO for the old school, before AI, Google, you're focused on rankings and traffic. And now that Google is changing, there are going to be some big changes. We're all going to need to figure it out. But what's going to help get us through those changes is focusing on customer acquisition and conversion. So what do we need to do to show up in Google's new search engine, get the right clicks from the right from searchers that have the search intent that we're targeting, and then convert them? So, oh, I lied. That wasn't the last slide. So last slide here. If you are interested in understanding the risk and the opportunity that Google's Search Generative Experience, SGE, Google's AI will have on your particular site, we do an SGE risk and opportunity analysis. Usually we charge $2,500 for it, but I have a few of them that I can give away for free. I want to have like an echo for free. But yeah, just reach out to me, Dale@fireandspark.com. We'd be happy to take a look at your website and your brand, and give you some recommendations for the new world of SEO.
Wow. Just thank you. Well, I'll start with just thank you. So before we started, everyone, I asked Dale the question, did it make sense for me to chime in every once in a while? And he said, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't add a thing of value to what he said because it was so powerful. I mean, so I was sitting here taking notes, and heck, I do this for a living, right? And I was learning a ton. So Dale, thank you, buddy. I truly appreciate it. So we have some time for Q&A. If people have questions, now would be the time. I've answered the other ones live, so there wasn't so we don't have any in the queue. The one thing I will say in the presentation, when you were talking about this, I kept thinking, wow, when I talk about this, I talk about it from the other standpoint, that when you get engagement and conversions, it increases your SEO traffic because Google rewards the actual love that you're actually answering the question. Google sees that you're answering the question and you get some love. But that's not a strategy for SEO. That's a strategy for conversion. A byproduct is a little bit better SEO, right? And so anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it all works together at the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, it looks like we don't have a lot of questions, because I'll bet you that everybody is trying to be first in asking, getting that free audit. So they're probably all typing away. All right. We do have one question here, so, or a couple questions. So now they're typing. So we got a couple minutes, Dale, to answer some
Yeah,
questions.
let's go for it.
Okay. So, first off, everybody is thanking you. We'll start with that, but they're asking for, what do you recommend reading to learn more about GEO?
So it's so new that it's changing and everybody's experimenting with it. I've been getting my best information by following the right people on LinkedIn. Basically following the experiments that they're doing. It'll definitely evolve over time. Search Engine Watch and Search Engine Journal have some comprehensive articles, and SEMrush has a comprehensive article about SGE, but it's changing. So it's really the type of thing where you want to follow the right people and stay abreast of what people are figuring out and learning.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I'm living more on LinkedIn these days too, so I feel it. We had a question about generative SEO. This is a little off topic. You may or may not be able to answer it, but knowing you probably can. The generative SEO and the new way info is being displayed, do you think that's going to change the way Google is going to show ads? Do you have any opinion on that?
It will. I need to be careful about this because like Google has a cash volcano of a business, and they're generating a ton, like billions of dollars from their ads. So yeah, they'll change, but they're going to change for Google's benefit, not anybody else's benefit. And that's not my area of expertise, so I don't want to really make any predictions there. But the best thing to do is to go to Google Labs, Google it, so you find it, and try out SG for yourself and see what the ads look like today, see what the organic listings look like today, because it's slowly evolving.
Fair enough. Yeah, I wouldn't have an answer for that either. That's why I phrased it the way I did to you. So sorry. Here's an interesting one. So for a small business with a small marketing budget, could you recommend the top strategy or two that can really move the needle in terms of using AI for better SEO, GEO, and conversions? Is there one or two things? Dale and I have talked about this in the past. Actually, we were at the conversion conference together last year. Dale's speaking at the conversion conference again this year in Phoenix, but we had this conversation. So
Yeah, the way that I think about it is you have a targeting bullseye. So if you have a small budget, then you're really just going after that bullseye of the best customer that you're trying to attract to your site. But if you have your larger budget, bigger brand, you might be able to go farther away from the bullseye. So what I would do is I would focus on, get a really tight definition of exactly the right type of customer that's in the very middle of the bullseye for your marketing, and use AI to help you build out a persona. Now, it doesn't mean that you can just ask ChatGPT to write the persona for you. You still need to talk to real customers to write a persona. What the AI is going to help you do is whatever you write, you can ask it, what's missing? What other questions should I ask the next time I talk to a customer, or have it compare it to other personas that you've written, things like that. And then use that like thorough grounding of an understanding of your target persona and the search intent that you're going after to build out the right type, and I started to say the right type of content. And I don't know your market or your space, but figure out what the right type of content is to create and use AI to help you create that content.
thank you. So we got a question from a friend of ours. Okay. So Jim Stern runs Marketing Analytics Summit. Dale and I have both spoken there over the years. You spoke there last year, I believe, correct? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I know Jim.
Absolutely. Anyway, so he asked, and Jim's a real analytics guru. He asked, on the analytics side, we know not to ask LLMs for facts because they make things up, which, by the way, I will second that they will hallucinate half the time. And you've actually indicated that too. So, but he asked, what types of questions do you like to ask when poking around with the data? And I think, and I could be wrong, Jim, but I think what you're asking is, how do you get it to not hallucinate?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is I want it to teach me something. So like I'll ask it, how can you help me analyze this data? Because if I give it a spreadsheet, I was asked by asking it to analyze the spreadsheet and tell me what columns are in it, because I want it to understand that. then I'll say, how can you help me figure out X? Or how can you help me analyze this data? Because I'm trying to get ideas for visualizations and analyses that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And sometimes it'll give me statistical methods. And I'm not, my wife happens to be a PhD in statistical, so she knows what that stuff is. But sometimes it'll give me statistical methods and then I'll ask it to explain to me, okay, why are you recommending that? That sort of thing. But I think what a lot of marketers miss is that you can ask these AI tools, how can you help me with whatever the high level thing is that you're trying to achieve, and go from there.
So that actually reminds me of the conversation we had at the conversion conference, which was about iterative questioning back and forth, and making sure that you're dialing it down deeper and deeper. But you also added something at the conference that I thought may or may not be relevant to, so you could talk to that, is you said, but you have to make sure you're training it correctly, because if you're just asking the questions, it could go anywhere. So would training help in the analytics side also, or do
I
you
would
think
say
iterative
giving
questions?
it more useful information in the prompt. So the way, like if we're giving it a spreadsheet, and we're poking around the data in a spreadsheet, is there something else I could give it related to that spreadsheet that would help it understand better the numbers in the spreadsheet? Because a spreadsheet's just tabular numbers, right? Tabular data. But what is the context around that? And an example that I would give, I'm trying to give a good example. We have performance data that we'll grab from Google Analytics and some other systems around our like content marketing. How well is everything performing? In addition to giving it that performance data spreadsheet, I could give it our entire content strategy PowerPoint, which is 20 slides on our content strategy for 2024. Now it has more context around what the numbers mean. And it just give you better ideas on how it can help you, and it'll have more context when you're asking it for specific analyses or visualizations.
Interesting. We've been also obviously experimenting with conversion rate and building in all sorts of information on best practices, conversion models, and so on. And the results we're getting are getting better and better and better on how to improve a page. So so we give it the training, but those iterative questions, we now have a technique we use. It takes an hour to go through something that in the past, to build a new model out, would take us easily a day. And so,
Wow.
it absolutely works. All right. Let's see. Last but not least here, we've got, and this is interesting. We used to get more information about the customer, right? But with all the privacy issues and basically lack of data coming in here, right? Are there specific strategies around optimizing in this new world? Now, this person didn't say it, this was Michelle, but with not getting all that third-party kind of data and only having like first-party data in a bunch of instances, how does that affect this?
So it can definitely be tough. Everybody on LinkedIn says, talk to your customers, and I'm gonna like echo that. I did a project for a preschool back in the day where we were just trying to put together a marketing strategy for a chain of preschools. They had a dozen locations, and lucky me, I had a good friend of mine who had a 2-year-old at the time, and I called her and I said, are you starting to look for a preschool? Because I want to ask you some questions. And she said, oh no, I haven't done it yet. I need to get around to it. So I said, well, can I come to your house and you do the search on my laptop? So I gave her my laptop. I sat next to her while she did it. And what I saw her do was I saw her type in, preschools in my town, and she put her town in there and a bunch of preschools came up. What I thought she was going to do was go to those websites and read about the curriculum, the cost, all of that, their philosophy, all of that. And she didn't. What she did was she took the name of those preschools and she went to a forum. There was like a Facebook group for moms in her town. And she said, what do you guys think of these preschools? And that was a big aha moment for us, which is we, instead of building out the right content and the right website to attract moms and get them to sign up for the preschool. What we need to do, when we totally changed our marketing strategy, was to build relationships with the organizers of the moms groups in every town, right? And it was that insight from watching her just do that search for a preschool on my laptop that completely changed our marketing strategy. So what I would say there is everything that you can do to talk to real customers, in person, live, face to face, whatever it is you can do. But a lot of times that's really hard, obviously. So we might talk to the salespeople at our organization instead, or we might look for chat logs or the search, internal site search box. What are people typing in there? Or customer service emails, like whatever it is that we can find to learn as much as we can about. But that's really what it comes down to.
Well, this has been great. Do you have time for one last question or?
It's fun for me.
Okay, I know it is. And it's actually for those of you who can come to the conversion conference because it's fun hanging out with Dale too. All right, so all
yeah,
right.
I'm completely sober right now. So
Yeah, well, we're not going to go down those paths right now. Okay, that's for a different audience. Okay, last question. All right. A friend of ours, Rich, asked a question: what are the top 3 SEO strategies you would suggest for a business that are mostly referral driven, or service based? And he says like yours, to use, or like ours even, in the scheme of things. So is there a top 3 strategies today?
I mean, it really does depend, but I would consider a local strategy if you're local. You Google My Business if you're local brick and mortar. If you have multiple locations, then you figure out how to put together a strategy for each individual location. Another killer strategy is anytime you can build community around your site. So what really works with Google at the end of the day is like if you're a brand that's building momentum. So that's Google reviews, it's mentions on social, it's mentions online, it's backlinks, all of those sorts of engagement that show Google you're a brand that's building momentum and you have a following behind your brand. And that's different from just the technical SEO that we're all used to with SEO best practices, where it's like write a blog, get some backlinks, done. And it's like, no, that's never really what Google was looking for. Google was looking to see that you're building goodwill somewhere with your customers or within your industry or something like that. So to the extent that you can actually do that and demonstrate to Google online that you're doing that, that's the second killer strategy. And then the third really has to do with the type of content that you're creating. Look beyond blogging. It's easier and more effective to do Q&A content, comparison content, or like the niche buying guides or something like that. So don't lock yourself into blogging for SEO.
Excellent. Well, Dale, I want to thank you very much for doing this. As always, it's a pleasure. I miss hanging out in person, but we're going to solve that in June. All right. So
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. And thank you all for coming. We will be sending out the recording in a couple days. Dale will make sure we get the slides to you. And I would strongly recommend you reach out to Dale, at his email address, and follow him on LinkedIn. He posts really, really good content up on LinkedIn. So that all said, you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Dale. Thank you all. We'll see you all soon. Bye.